On this Sunday night, travel turbulence. Air Transat cancels flights as its pilots prepare to strike, leaving holiday travel plans up in the air. Canadian veterans paying for the government's mistake.
Some of these veterans are fragile.
Why some are on the hook for tens of thousands of dollars in overpaid benefits. A nightclub fire in a popular resort region of India kills dozens, including tourists. Plus, how a BC university student is caring for children grappling with grief.
It's not always as easy or natural for all kids.
With the help of some furry friends.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin with a labor dispute that could upend Canadians' holiday travel plans. Pilots at Air Transat have given notice that they are preparing to go on strike on Wednesday. As a result, the Canadian airline now says it will begin grounding flights starting tomorrow and suspend all service as of Tuesday, unless a last-minute deal can be reached. Mike Armstrong reports on the negotiations between the two sides and the travelers caught in the middle.
It's business as usual for now, with Air Transat pilots advising the airline they'll walk off the job Wednesday. The company says it has to start shutting down, meaning passengers heading out Sunday for tropical weather don't know if their return flights are going to happen. Cancellations may be coming.
On prend le risque.
This woman says she'll take the risk and hope if a strike happens, it doesn't last long.
I mean, we've booked so long ago, and we've been waiting for this for a long time, so we'll just deal with it.
Now, the two sides say they are still negotiating, hoping to avoid a work stoppage, but the heat is getting turned up. In a statement Sunday, the company says the union is being reckless and unreasonable. The airline's 700 pilots negotiated their last collective agreement a decade ago. It lasted 5 years, was extended a few times, and then expired this past March. They've been negotiating ever since. In its statement Sunday, Air Transat says it's made, quote, generous offers to the pilots, but that the union has shown no openness. The airline says it's offered a complete overhaul of the collective agreement that includes major improvements to pilots' working conditions and a 59% salary increase over 5 years.
Unfortunately, that is inaccurate.
The chair of the pilots union says 59% isn't on the table and that he's surprised it's being thrown out publicly. Captain Bradley Small says the two sides are still far apart on issues like pensions, benefits, and compensation, but that he'd prefer to keep the bargaining private.
I'm not going to throw ridiculous numbers out. It's not responsible on my part.
Now, as it prepares to cancel flights, Air Transat says it's trying to be more flexible with passengers. Anyone traveling in the next 5 days can change or postpone their trip with no charge. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Torontonians have some of the longest commute times on the continent, but the city's transit system just got a desperately needed upgrade. After years of construction and delays, the Finch West LRT officially opened today, offering thousands of commuters a ride across the city. It's Toronto's first new rapid transit line in over 2 decades, with another line expected to open in the new year. As Lexi Benedict reports, it didn't all go according to plan.
Toronto's newest ride has officially pulled into the station. The Finch West LRT opened Sunday to plenty of fanfare.
Just to kind of be one of the first to experience an LRT, what it's like, you know, it's pretty historical. It's very needed in this city.
The 10.3-kilometer LRT runs from Finch West Station to Humber College's North Campus. It's the first time a new transit line has opened in the city since all the way back in 2002, and the first major transit opening since 2017. Many riders didn't have anywhere to go, just came to soak it all in.
And I love very much is seeing a lot of beautiful sceneries whenever you go travel around the TTC.
It's even attracting visitors from outside the city.
I came all the way from Kitchener, drove here. Really excited to check out this new line, you know, see what it has to offer.
And to mark this major milestone, opening day came with a perk. No ticket, no cost, and riders allowed to board for free.
The train was a comfortable ride, you know, that new train smell.
All of this excitement comes after years of waiting. Construction began in 2019 with an opening date originally set for 2023. But after delays, setbacks, and rising costs, it's finally here.
After 15 years wait, everybody's, I think, very excited to finally have this.
Premier Doug Ford joined officials for a first ride on Friday. His government says the new line is expected to carry more than 51,000 riders daily and give roughly 230,000 more people access to faster and more reliable transit once the line is at full speed this spring. But in classic Toronto fashion, the line hit a snag shortly after opening, with mechanical issues causing some delays. And speaking of delays, the Premier says the long-delayed Eglinton Crosstown LRT should be opening shortly.
I'd be safe and say 2026, but very soon after 2026.
Fingers crossed that's the case. Lexi Benedict, Global News, Toronto.
Some Canadian veterans have received an unexpected and unwelcome bill. Global News has learned dozens of vets have been notified that their benefits were overpaid by Veterans Affairs Canada. The money built up over years, meaning some now owe tens of thousands of dollars. As Heidi Petracek reports, they're now calling on the government to step up and fix the system.
Angus Cameron often shows other veterans how to find solace through mechanics. But for the past few weeks, he's been helping some navigate shock.
I've never heard so many veterans getting overpayment letters from Veterans Affairs Canada in, thousands and thousands of dollars.
Veterans Affairs Canada confirms it's sent out 90 letters since October to veterans who receive the Income Replacement Benefit, or IRB, given after discharge for injury or illness due to service. The department says it was discovered that some veterans who receive IRB did not report that they had started receiving the Canada Pension Plan as income. Cameron says the veterans he's talked to insist they did.
They reported it, and only to be told, yeah, no problem, that falls within the guidelines, thanks for your service.
Global News spoke to a New Brunswicker notified of overpayment of more than $65,000 dating back to April 1st, 2019, who maintains he kept his income info up to date.
We do have a number of cases where veterans have reported all of these offsets, all of these other benefits. And for some reason, Veteran Affairs never processed.
The veteran who received this letter says Veterans Affairs told him his Quebec disability didn't count. Now he owes almost $70,000 with a first installment of $3,600 this month. Advocates say vets shouldn't have to pay if it's the government's mistake and wonder why this isn't checked every year.
Maybe if they did that, you wouldn't have these cases that are suddenly 5, 6, 7 years in arrears.
And I have to tell you, some of these veterans are fragile.
Cameron worries the system is so complicated and bureaucratic. Some with PTSD or other conditions have too much to deal with and got overwhelmed. A reason the department should be more understanding, he says, rather than slapping veterans with a bill. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
In the U.S., Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is doubling down on his decision to strike a suspected Venezuelan drug cartel boat. The vessel was hit twice, with the second strike targeting 2 survivors who were clinging to the wreckage. As Candice Cole reports, the controversy has lawmakers on both sides questioning the legality of the strikes and Hegseth's leadership.
From what I understood then and what I understand now, I fully support that strike. I would have made the same call myself.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth telling a crowd Saturday that he would have made the same call to order a second strike on a suspected drug boat in the Caribbean that killed 2 survivors on September 2nd, while denying he ever gave an order to, quote, kill everybody, as alleged in last week's bombshell Washington Post article. Now, bipartisan lawmakers are calling for the release of the video showing the second attack to let Americans judge for themselves.
But I think it's really important that people see what it looks like when the full force of the United States military is turned on 2 guys who are clinging to a piece of wood and about to go under, just so that they have sort of a visceral feel for what it is that we're doing.
Let's err on the side of transparency. The American people, they like to make decisions too based on facts, not just on what we tell them.
The September 2nd boat strike marked the first in a series of ongoing strikes on suspected but unverified drug trafficking vessels against what President Trump and Hegseth have called narco-terrorists. While some weigh whether the Trump administration committed a war crime, others call the strikes flat-out murder. murder.
They weren't Navy personnel that were calling in airstrikes. They were helpless individuals desperately trying to stay alive. And Admiral Bradley ordered them to be executed. That's a war crime in war, and it's murder in peacetime, and all of these strikes are peacetime. Just killing people, murdering them on the high seas. The United States does not have access to the intelligence they could have gained from these individuals, and that's how you break down an entire cartel, an entire network.
Admiral Frank Bradley, who oversaw those strikes, has also come under fire for not refusing to carry out an illegal order. He testified before Congress last week that the 11 people on that boat were on a military target list. Jeff?
Candice Cole in Washington. Thanks, Candice. Some tense moments at London's Heathrow Airport. Police were called to the parking garage after 21 people were assaulted with pepper spray. A suspect was later arrested. Police say it was not terrorism, but rather an argument that escalated between two groups. Ukrainian and American officials have just wrapped up a three-day meeting in Miami where they discussed a potential peace deal to end Russia's war in Ukraine. The talks included U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Ukraine's ambassador to the U.S. says difficult issues remain, but the U.S. Special Representative to Ukraine sounded more optimistic. Keith Kellogg told the Defense Forum that they are, quote, really close to securing a deal. He said the two final sticking points are control over Ukraine's Donetsk region and the Zaporizhzhia power plant, Europe's largest nuclear plant, which is currently occupied by Russian forces. Meanwhile, the UN's nuclear watchdog delivered a worrying assessment of Chernobyl, the site of the 1986 nuclear disaster. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, the large protective shield around the former nuclear plant can no longer confine the radiation inside. That's due to damage from a drone strike earlier this year. The nuclear watchdog recommends a major renovation to ensure the site's safety. Ukraine accuses Russia of carrying out the strike that damaged the facility, which the Kremlin denies. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the second phase of the ceasefire in Gaza is expected to start soon.
Phase one, we're almost there. We have one more hostage deceased, Hani Gvili, a hero of Israel, to return here. And then we very shortly expect to move into the second phase, which is more difficult.
At a press conference alongside the German Chancellor, Netanyahu said he will meet U.S. President Donald Trump later this month to discuss the next phase of the ceasefire. It involves disarming Hamas, deploying an international security force to Gaza, and forming a temporary Palestinian government. As part of the first phase of the ceasefire, Hamas freed all 20 living hostages and has now returned 27 of the 28 bodies of hostages who died. That was in exchange for around 2,000 Palestinian detainees and prisoners. And for the first time in 2 years, the Christmas tree in Bethlehem was lit up, restoring some holiday joy to the Holy City in the West Bank. Thousands of Palestinians gathered in Manger Square, singing hymns and celebrating the lighting ceremony. Those festivities at the birthplace of Jesus had been canceled for the past 2 Christmases due to the war in Gaza. A night of dancing turns deadly in India. Coming up, a fire rips through a packed nightclub that's popular with tourists. Plus, a live camera capturing a Hawaiian volcano gets a little too close. In India, a deadly fire tore through a nightclub in Goa, a resort region that's popular with tourists. The blaze killed dozens of people, and authorities are now investigating the cause. Jillian Piper reports.
A fun night of dancing at this popular Indian nightclub quickly turned to disaster. These were the final moments of chaos before the blaze engulfed the entire Burj nightclub in India's western Goa state, known for its coastal tourism. The fire killed 25 people, who officials say were mostly venue staff, along with some tourists, and 6 more are in stable condition at a local hospital. Global Affairs Canada says it is not aware of any Canadian citizens impacted at this time.
We got to know there has been a fire.
This man narrowly avoided the tragedy.
Actually, we got lucky because our cab driver was late, or else we would be here.
Others were not so lucky. This man says two of his nephews, aged 18 and 20, who had been working at the club for less than a year, died in the flames. Goa's chief minister has launched an inquiry into the incident to see whether all safety protocols were followed. Local media reports the blaze may have been caused by a gas cylinder exploding in the club's kitchen. The club's manager has already been arrested and a warrant has been issued against the owners as well, with the minister saying whoever is found guilty will be put behind bars. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is promising that his office will offer compensation of up to $3,000 to each family of the victims and about $770 to those injured. But that may be little solace for those grieving an unimaginable loss. Jillian Piper, Global News, Ottawa.
An attempted coup in Benin has been foiled, according to the country's interior minister.
Avons décidé de prendre nos responsabilités suite aux multiples dérives.
As you see there, soldiers appeared on state television this morning claiming they had dissolved the West African country's government. Gunshots were also heard near the presidential residence. Officials say 13 people have now been arrested. It remains unclear if that includes the coup's leader. Benin's current president, Patrice Talon, has been in power since 2016, and he gave an address to the nation late today, insisting that the situation is now totally under control. Well, take a look at this spectacular eruption from Hawaii's Mount Kilauea volcano, which is now approaching a full year of increased activity. Remote cameras captured lava spewing up to 30 meters in the air, but this camera was a little too close. The lava approached and eventually burned the camera and knocked out the live feed. Parts of Yukon were shaken by one of Canada's strongest earthquakes on record. The 7-magnitude quake hit near the Alaska-Yukon border on Saturday afternoon, about 250 kilometers away from Whitehorse. It's the strongest earthquake on Canadian soil in almost 80 years. People in Whitehorse reported lots of shaking, but there are no reports of any injuries or damage. Fighting over fossil fuels still ahead, the key issue that's dividing the frontrunners to lead the NDP into the next federal election. The federal NDP will pick a new leader in March as the party looks to rebuild after its worst election result in decades. Climate and energy policy is now emerging as the key fault line, with some leadership contenders calling for an end to fossil fuel expansion, while rivals push a more gradual transition. David Aiken reports.
For Avi Lewis, it's go big or go home.
This dichotomy of electability versus big, bold ideas, it's a false one. Big, bold ideas that actually are big enough to solve the epic crises we face are how we win. They're how we've always won.
One of Lewis's big, bold ideas is to move away from fossil fuel extraction and find 1 million jobs for workers in renewables and clean energy. He calls it his Green New Deal.
I think we owe a great debt to fossil fuel workers. They've kept the lights on and the pistons pumping in this country for 150 years. But we have to make a big change now, and everybody knows it.
The debate between NDP leadership rivals may not be about the need for a transition, but about the pace and scale of that transition.
Of course, climate change is real, but we also have to be very realistic and pragmatic that we are not going to turn off oil and gas today. That's not going to happen.
Too rapid a shift away from oil and gas could alienate many resource workers, especially in Alberta, where former New Democrat Premier Rachel Notley once fought in favor of the Trans Mountain oil pipeline, and in BC, where NDP premiers John Horgan and David Eby have fought for natural gas pipelines.
We understand that we need people working in forestry and mines, and even, yes, true, in the oil and gas sector. in a way that they feel good about and the way that we feel good about too.
In the last election, many NDP voters in ridings that depend on manufacturing and resource extraction turned to Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. And the Conservatives intend to hold on to this newly won demographic.
The NDP has been attacking working class men and women. They have abandoned the working class people who literally build this country with their hands. The only party that stands up for working class people is the Conservative Party.
And so, to win back the party status that it lost in 2025, New Democrats may need to win back working men and women in the extractive industries, or convince those resource workers, as Lewis is trying to do, that there can be a prosperous green future without oil and gas. David Aiken, Global News, Ottawa.
Lending a paw. Up next, the BC student who's training therapy dogs for a special purpose. A BC University student is using her own childhood tragedy to help other kids dealing with devastating loss during the holidays. 22-year-old Avery Kerstick lost her mother to cancer just before Christmas back in 2006. She's now working with other children who've experienced similar loss by running her own therapy dog program. That program is hosted by a grief and bereavement care center in Parksville, BC. Kerstick grew up attending that center's annual grief retreat, which is named Camp Carey after her mother.
When we talk about community, it's not always as easy or natural for all kids to be super social in these environments, especially when they've just gone through loss and are experiencing grief. It can feel very isolating. And I think there isn't the same pressure interacting with a dog as a human.
Grief is here, and we want people to acknowledge that there are many people amongst us who are missing somebody at the table, and it's hard for them.
Most of the families that attend Camp Carey are dealing with a sudden death, overdose, or suicide. Last year, the society served more than 2,300 people. And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada is Botwood, Newfoundland and Labrador. We love seeing your festive Canada photos, so please keep emailing them to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great night.